First of all, historically, the distinction between normal and paranormal would have shocked men of science well into the 19th century.
Okay.
They didn't see any difference. They didn't see any difference or any distinction
Between the normal
normal
and the
paranormal.
paranormal.
Yeah. I mean, Newton was an astrologer and an alchemist,
I did
for
not know
example.
that. I did not know that.
Yeah, he spent most of his career as an alchemist and astrologer, actually. Physics
Wow.
was a byline, a hobby.
Wow.
And this is only one example. Well into the 19th century, there was a separation between science and all the rest. And both realms of existence were considered equally valid and equally important to the meaningful and full and rich life of an individual. Only with the rise of scientism, which is the religion of science, only with the rise of scientism did we come to disparage and kind of mock and ridicule the paranormal, the religious, the irrational, as if they have no role in human life, or as if their only role is to corrupt the human mind. That is expressly untrue. Religion, parapsychology, the paranormal, the supernatural, spiritualism, I mean, the esoteric, all these are there because they're needed. And they're needed because they cater to specific psychological functions and needs. Having said that, they reflect highly specific psychological processes. First of all, anyone who believes in the paranormal has some kind of difficulty to tell apart internal objects from external objects. There's a confusion between what's happening internally and what's happening externally. And this, of course, is why we see apparitions and ghosts. They exist in our mind, but we perceive them as external. This is an element in psychotic disorders. People with psychosis have this problem.
So Sam, are you saying that anybody who says they have had a brush with the paranormal, who has had a brush with the unexplained, has experienced some manner of temporary psychosis?
No, what I'm saying is that certain types of paranormal experiences reflect a confusion between internal and external objects, and that is also a clinical feature of psychotic disorders. It doesn't mean that these people are psychotic.
No, I'm not saying they are psychotic, but it sounds like you're saying it can be a temporary situational phenomenon.
It's a temporary break with reality, absolutely, yes. It's a valid experience. The person is not lying. They did see a ghost. But we know that this is a hallucination. An apparition is a hallucination. We know that there is a breakdown of the boundary between external reality and internal reality, which leads to the confusion of the two territories.
Sam, let me ask you a question, because this is a case that we are going to talk about and delve into on our Halloween episode. And this is an isolated case, but there is a documented story and video, audio, literature, what have you, of a young girl, I believe in the 1980s. So this is before the internet and before one could have their fantasies augmented by such a thing, who at about the age of 5 years old reported playing with a couple of men who were in their 50s. She could name them. She could explain what they looked like. Nobody else saw them. It turned out these men were deceased. They had lived in the house next door. She had all of the factual biographical details of their lives correct. How would you explain such a thing? Can science explain such a thing?
I don't know the particular case, but I can make two general comments.
Okay.
Most children have imaginary friends.
Right.
These imaginary friends disappear in adulthood, but they fulfill very important roles. They're known as transitory objects. These imaginary friends allow the child to develop social skills and to feel protected and safe in environments which are less than stable, and so on and so forth. But most children have them. That's point number one. Point number two, there have been multiple projects in academia and in science where we have attempted to study exactly such stories over decades And I'm not talking about a single project. We have Stephenson's project. We have the Princeton Laboratory. Each of these projects has studied anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 cases.
Mm-hmm.
In the totality of this endeavor, we succeeded to come across a single unexplained case.
Really?
One. All the others
Can you
were
talk a little bit about what that one unexplained case entailed?
Yeah, that was a case described by Stephenson, who was a serious and rigorous academic.
Year?
Stephenson was in the United States, yes. And Stephenson
60s. Okay.
I'm sorry?
1960s, you said.
Yes.
Okay.
And Stephenson described the case of a young girl who came up with a recollection, perfect recollection, of her previous life in India. There was an American young girl, yeah? A previous life in India. She described her relatives, she named them, she described her house, and she described a buried treasure, a treasure she herself had buried prior to her demise. She died in childbirth, I think.
Hmm.
And then the only way to verify this was to travel to India. And so the whole circus traveled to India. And they found, she named them correctly. They found the house. And they found the buried treasure exactly where she pointed it out. And that's the only unexplained case in the entire history of the field, which is now at least 150 years old.
I would say, though, that case is beyond tantalizing.
Well, that's precisely what people like William James and
I was going to get to William James with you. Exactly.
precisely what William James and Arthur Conan Doyle said. These were hyper-rational people. William James is arguably the father of psychology, and Arthur
Let's
Conan
just
Doyle.
explain to anyone who may be unfamiliar with William James, brother of the famous novelist, 19th century novelist Henry James. He was a physician. He taught at Harvard. He was an expert in anatomy, a rationalist who later in life wrote one of the most famous books on the subject up until that point, called The Variety of Religious Experience. And I remember reading that book maybe in my 20s and thinking, this was blowing my mind, because I felt like I was experiencing a rationalist working through his own resistance to the idea of other dimensions or other understandings of human nature that were beyond our own recognition.
There's also James, the father of psychology,
Mm-hmm.
who is an even more interesting case. And he suggested that paranormal phenomena are real.
Are real.
He developed this belief or belief system following the death of his only son, Herman. And very often, these conversions on the way to Damascus take place after a period of grief, in the wake of some grief. So we have Arthur Conan Doyle, who lost his son in the First World War, the father of Sherlock Holmes, yeah.
Yes, yes.
And Arthur Conan Doyle became a spiritualist in the wake of this experience, the loss of his son. So did James. And James said that if there is a general maxim that all swans are white, and then there's a single black swan, that is enough to falsify the maxim. Now, I'm mentioning this because you asked me about this single case.
Yeah.
This single case has not been explained. And I find it difficult to think of a way to explain it, to be honest. And in itself is sufficient to falsify the paradigm that the paranormal is wrong.
Thank you. I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't want to say it. I was thinking the exact same thing.
It's a curious case which challenges many, many underlying assumptions regarding many, many things.
Well, I just want to say, you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, and I love this phrase, the religion of scientism. The idea that scientism, this idea that we explain everything through known laws of physics and medicine, biology, the known world, is in itself a religion, even if said adherents consider themselves atheists. No. They do belong to a religion. I want to show a clip of the very famous neurologist Oliver Sacks, who has since passed, being asked about what he thinks about the paranormal and the idea of dualism, the idea that the body houses the soul and those two things live together for a time but are separate entities that divide upon death. Let's take a look.
Do you find, I mean, is there a mind-body dichotomy, or are we just one set of physical organisms?
I feel strongly that we are just one set, and I think the dichotomy is partly because we don't know enough about the body and its wonder, which is what Spinoza was saying in 1650. Many physiologists are dualists. Sherrington, who was the greatest physiologist of all, was a complete dualist, and but I tend to think that there will be one day a biology of consciousness and of sensibility which will not be reductive, and will allow all the fullness of life as we know it.
And will explain all?
Will illuminate all. There's something always reductive about explanation.
So I'll talk about what struck me about that interview, and then I'll give it to you. Oliver Sacks, indisputably a brilliant man. If you haven't seen Awakenings, that was his discovery, and his research is struggling, to my mind. He is saying, I absolutely am not a dualist. I believe that there is one temporal existence, and upon death we become nothing. But to me, and he references Spinoza, who thought differently as early as 1650. He seems to be struggling, and that to me humanizes him. That to me says, I may be a man of medicine, but I cannot, in my delivery and my comportment, say I 100% believe this to be the case. What are your thoughts, Sam?
Science is a method of inquiry.
Mm-hmm.
Science is not about finding answers. Science is about asking the right questions. All the answers of science are false and will always be false. That's why science constantly improves upon itself. That's why we no longer adhere to theories which were, the best of trade. Or
best of trade, I love that.
Or the state of the art in the 17th century or the 18th century.
Mm-hmm.
They're no longer valid, yet they were highly scientific at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The process of science is querying the universe in a way which would tantalizingly provide temporary answers, which would then be disproved. This is not Sam Vaknin. This is Karl Popper, who came up with the idea of falsifiability. He said that scientific theories cannot be verified. They can only be falsified. He was right, of course. And so whatever it is that Newton has said is still valid, but there is a theory which is much more valid, which is Einstein's, which will be 100% falsified in 100 years' time.
You think so?
No doubt about this. Not the beginning of a doubt about this. It's already partially falsified by quantum
Which
mechanics.
theory are you speaking of? Are you thinking of the theory of relativity? What are you thinking of?
Yeah, his theories, all his theory. There's no scientific theory that survives the test of time. Science is a succession of falsehoods, not a succession of truth or facts. It's a common mistake. Laymen think this way. Laymen say, science is going to give us the answer. No way. However, science can teach you what questions to ask and which questions are not legitimate. So science is about legitimizing discourse and delegitimizing other forms of discourse. Science is about language, not about reality.
I love that you're saying this, because I feel that we as lay people, no matter how much we read or how much we listen to minds such as yourself, the message we get from the scientific establishment and anybody who's had dealings with the medical establishment, 99% of the time you're going to be dealing with someone who says, I know best. This is factual. This is settled science. Settled science.
Yeah.
And we live in an age right now where questions are being asked and people who are asking questions are being told, you're an idiot. This is settled science. You say not so.
Settled science is an oxymoron. There is no science that is ever settled, and the essence of science is to unsettle itself. The essence of the scientific method, scientific inquiry, and the scientific mind is to challenge, undermine, and falsify everything we think we know. This is not Wikipedia. This is not crowdsourcing. So, no, we are never going to end up with a stable article, as Wikipedians call it. We're never going to have a stable article.
Here's a shock. It's been over 16 years since the federal minimum wage was raised to $7.25. Can you believe it? Company productivity has doubled, but has your wallet size? 1 in 5 Americans can't even qualify for a basic credit card. The system is broken. We all deserve access to decent housing, transportation, and financial stability. That is where Kickoff comes in. Kickoff helps you build credit fast with affordable plans starting at just $5 per month. No hidden fees, no interest, just on-time payments that get reported to credit bureaus and help you grow a strong credit score. Users with credit scores under 600 saw an average increase of 84 points in their first year. With premium plans, you can even build credit with the rent you already pay. Only positive payments get reported. It is so easy to get started. Sign up in minutes from your phone. No credit check, no hassle. Over 1 million users and hundreds of thousands of 5-star reviews make Kickoff the #1 credit builder on the App Store. Start building credit today and get your first month for just $1 at getkickoff.com/Maureen. That's getkickoff.com/Maureen.